This is J. Krishnamurti's third public talk in London, 1962.
I would like this evening, if I may, talk about time, death, and if we have time at the end of it, I'd like to talk also about what we call love. We were talking the other day about fear and sorrow. We are not dealing with ideas. Ideas are organized thought. And thought does not solve our deep psychological problems. What really wipes away the problems of facing them, coming directly and vitally into contact with them, not through the screen of thought, but being able to see actually and feel actually the fact, be emotionally, if I may use that word, not sentimentally, but emotionally, be in contact with the fact. And if we rely on thought, however clever, however organized, logical, sane, rational, our psychological problems will never be solved. Because, as we were pointing out the other day, it is thought that creates all our problems. And a man who would really go into this whole question of death and not escape from it must not only find out how thought creates time, but also how thought prevents the understanding of the whole depth of death, the meaning, the significance, and the enormity of death. Most of us are frightened of death. And so we try to escape from it. We try to rationalize it. Or we have innumerable beliefs, again, manufactured by thought. And we cling to those beliefs, however rational or irrational they be. But to really go into this question of death demands, it seems to me, a mind that is not only capable of being very rational, logical, sane, but also the capacity to look, to see the fact as it is, and not get overwhelmed by fear. And as we were saying the other day, to understand fear, we must understand time. not the chronological time by the watch. That is fairly simple to understand. There is nothing much to understand. It's mechanical. But we are talking about the psychological time. The looking back to yesterday and to many yesterdays. And to all the remembrance of things that we have known, felt, collected, gathered, and stored up in memory. Which shapes our present. And the present is projected into the future. And it is this time, this psychological time, in which thought is caught. Thought is the result of this time. Of yesterday, passing through today to tomorrow. The thought of tomorrow is conditioned by today, which again is conditioned by the past. And to go into the past, not only the mechanical past of a conscious mind, the things that we have learnt at school, the jobs that we are doing, the mechanical process of remembering, which is again what we have learnt of the past, in the past. But the knowledge that one has, which is not only the mechanical knowledge, but the psychological knowledge, the things that one has experienced, stored up, which is hidden deep in the unconscious. Which, as most of us have not time to inquire into it, because we're too busy, occupied with our daily activities. That unconscious gives various hints and intimations, which become dreams. And the interpretations of those dreams, and the contradiction of the interpretations, all that, both the conscious as well as the unconscious, is time. Time as knowledge. Time as experience. Time as distance between what is and what should be. Time as a means to arrive, to succeed, to fulfill, to become. All shaped by the unconscious. And it is, if one has observed, not only very difficult to understand the unconscious and all its hidden motives and purposes and compulsions, but also it's very difficult to see and feel our way into the unconscious through conscious effort. It must be approached negatively, not by the positive process of analysis. Because the analyzer is conditioned by his memories. And his positive approach to something which he does not know, of which he is not aware, is of little significance. So, one must approach this question of death negatively, because we don't know what it is. We know there is senility, old age and decay, death through accident, death purposefully, but we don't know really what it means to die. We have seen others die. We have rationalized death. We see old age coming upon us and losing our memory, gradual senility. And we say, well, that's the end of that. We know what death is. The ending of the mechanism. And that's all. There is nothing more to it. All life is a process of mechanism, imitation, growth and decay. But that doesn't bring deep understanding of what death is. It must be something extraordinary, as life is. Life is something, a total thing. The sorrow, the pain, the anguish, the joys, the absurd ideas, possessions, envy, love, and the aching misery of loneliness. All that is life. And to understand death, we must also understand life. Not take one fragment of it and live with it, which most of us do. So in the very understanding of death, there's the understanding of life. The two things are not separate. As I said, we are not dealing with ideas or beliefs. They solve nothing. A man who wants to know what it is to die, to actually experience it, to know what the full significance of it. Must know what it must be aware of it as death in living. That is to die every day. You can't die every day physically, though physiologically there is change every moment going on. But to die psychologically, inwardly, to things that we have gathered as experience, to things that we call knowledge, to things that we have known, pleasure and pain, to die to all that. See, but most of us don't want to die. Because we are content with our living. And our living is pretty ugly. It's mean, envious, there's strife, a misery. The things that we know every day, and to that we cling desperately. So our living is a misery with occasional flashes of joy, which becomes soon a memory. And our dying, our death is also a misery. But to be able to die to everything that we know psychologically is really death, isn't it? Which means to be able to face tomorrow without knowing what tomorrow is. This is not a theory, a fascinating belief. Because most people who are afraid of death believe either in reincarnation, resurrection, and 100 other beliefs. We are not talking of beliefs, that is immature. A man who really wants to find out isn't concerned with belief. He wants to find out. And to find out, you must know how to die. I don't know if you have ever tried to die to something which is very close to you, which gives you an immense pleasure. Just to die to it, not reasonably die to it, not with reason, conviction, with a purpose, but just to die to it like a leaf that falls away from the tree. And so if you can die every day, every minute, then you will know the ending of that psychological time, which is death. And it's really very important, which seems to me, for a mature mind, for a mind that is inquiring. I mean by inquiry, not seeking with a motive to find out what is true. You can't find out what is true if you have a motive. You can't find out what is true if you're conditioned by a belief, by a dogma, by a religion. You must die to that. Die to the society, to innumerable religions, to the various beliefs that one clings to. Because after all, these beliefs and dogmas offer security, psychological security. Because we see the world in a mess, confused, everything changing so rapidly. Not the thing that changes rapidly matters, but the change itself which is so rapid. We see all this. So we want something lasting, enduring. And so we cling to some form of psychological security, a belief, an ideal, a dogma. And that prevents us from really finding out. To find out anything really, mustn't you come to it with an innocent mind, to discover something, a mind that's fresh, young, uncontaminated by society. Society is, after all, the psychological structure of envy, greed, ambition, power, prestige, and all the rest of it. And it's only when one dies to it, not theoretically, not abstractly, but actually when you die to envy, envy being the more, becoming something greater, or identifying yourself with something ennobling. All that process is surely not comprehending the enormous implication of death. Because we all will die, both physically and perhaps psychologically. There is a time when age will catch us up. And being afraid, we invent theories. We put together ideas, rationalize them. But that's not the understanding of death. After all, death, with death you can't argue. You can't discuss. Ask it of time to live another day. It is absolutely final. In the same way, to die to envy, without argument, without what's going to happen tomorrow if you give up, if you die to envy. Or if you die to ambition, then you will find out. Which really means understanding the whole process of psychological time. Because we're always thinking, planning for tomorrow. Psychologically, I'm not talking about mechanically planning. Psychologically, what you will be tomorrow. The cunning thought that pursues what has been and what will be. We are built on that. We are the result of our memories. And that memory is time. And to be able effortlessly, easily, to die to something that you love. We all want to die to something which is painful. That's comparatively easy. But to die to something which gives you a great pleasure, great sense of inward richness, to die to an experience, to die to your visions, to die to your hopes and despairs. Then you are confronted with an extraordinary sense of loneliness. When you have nothing to rely on. Because you can't trust anything anymore. Not the churches, not the books, no teacher, no system, no philosophy. Because if you put your trust in them, you're still afraid. You're still envious, greedy, ambitious, seeking power. You can't trust anything anymore, which is just as world. But if you don't trust anything, you become bitter, cynical, superficial. And then you live day by day, just that being enough. But that makes for a very shallow life, a petty life, however cunning, philosophical it may be. But to die to all that, not knowing tomorrow, which means to die to things that we know. I do not know if you have ever tried this. And if you have experimented with it, not superficially but actually, taking a pleasure and looking at it, going into it, seeing all the significance involved in it, and then cutting it effortlessly. Then, as I said, you will come to an extraordinary sense of loneliness, a sense of nothingness, because there is nothing tomorrow. There is no tomorrow, which is not a bleak despair. On the contrary, because after all, most of us are terribly lonely. You may have occupation, you may have a family, children, plenty of money, cars, what you will, plenty of knowledge, cunning mind. But pushing all that aside, you will, when you are by yourself, on a walk, sitting in a bus, or walking in a wood, you will know this extraordinary sense of loneliness. But you see, We are very frightened at that moment. We never face that loneliness. We never go through that emptiness to find out what is. We turn on the radio, turn to a book, chatter, or go to a church or cinema, or take a drink. They're all the same whether you go to church or take a drink or read a book. They're all on the same level because they offer escapes. God is a cheerful escape. As drink. So there is not much difference to a man who is escaping, whether it's God or a drink. Sociologically, perhaps drink is not so good, but also the escape to God has its own detriment. So, a man who would understand death actually experience it, not verbally, not theoretically, but to die to yesterday, to all the memories, psychological memories of wounds, the wounds, the flatteries, the insults, the pettiness, the envies, to die to all that is to die to oneself, because that is oneself. Then you will find, if you've gone so far, not verbally but actually, that there is a aloneness, not loneliness. Loneliness and aloneness are two different things. You cannot come to aloneness to be alone without understanding what is loneliness, without going through that door, without that state when you have all relationship means nothing at all. Your daughters, your husbands, your wives, your jobs, to everything, it has no meaning anymore when you're so lonely. I'm sure some of you must have felt that. But when you can go through it and beyond it, not be caught by the word lonely and get frightened by that word. When you have died to all the things you have known, when society no longer influences you, society influences you only when psychologically you belong to it. It has no influence whatsoever. If you have cut the knot, psychological knot that binds you to society. Then you're out of the clutches of social respectability and morality. Then when you have gone through that loneliness, not escaping, not verbalizing, but being with it, which requires a great deal of energy. Because to live with something, whether it's ugly or beautiful, without getting used to it, without letting it corrupt you, you need energy. And that energy, uncontaminated, is alone. That is aloneness. And that state must come. then out of that, there is that total negation, the emptiness out of which there is creation. All creation must only take place, surely, in emptiness, not when your mind is full. So death has meaning only when you can die to all the vanities, superficialities, to all our innumerable remembrances. Then there is something which is beyond time, which you can't come by if you have fear, if you have beliefs, if you are caught in sorrow. One must die to all that. Then one will know what that extraordinary energy which is life is. If I may suggest, perhaps we can ask questions and discuss what we have talked about. Talk either today or what we have talked about last few times that we have met. Yes. The gentleman wants to know to be the implications of being aware without choice. That's just what I've been talking about this evening. I didn't use the word aware. But we'll discuss it. We'll go into it. I think we must not give too great a significance to that word aware. It isn't something mysterious that you must practice, that can only be learnt from some bearded gentleman or somebody or other. It's too absurd, all that kind of fanciful ideas. Just to be aware, what does it mean? To be aware of this hall, of you sitting there and I sitting here and I talking to you and you listening to me. The shape of the hall, the lighting, the acoustics, the color of the various people, where their attitudes, there's effort to listen, to find out. They're scratching, yawning, bored, dissatisfied with what they have heard because they can't get something to carry home with. Or agree or disagree with what is being said. All that's part of awareness. That's a very superficial part. But the reaction behind that superficial observation is the response of your conditioning. I like and I don't like. I'm British and you are not British. I am a Catholic and you are a Protestant. And according to our conditioning, which is really quite extraordinary, very deep, and requires a great deal of investigation, understanding. To be conscious of your reactions and to be aware of the unconscious with all its motives. That's part of awareness. But you can't be aware totally if you are choosing. If you say this is right and this is wrong, the right and wrong depend on your conditioning. What is right to you may be wrong in the Far East. You believe in a Savior, in a Christ, and they don't. And you think they will go to hell unless they also believe as you do. And you have the power to organize, to build marvelous churches. And they worship on a little stone, a tree, a bird, a rock. And you say, how silly, how pagan. And to be aware of all this, choicelessly, not choosing what you like and discarding what you don't like. To be aware totally of all your conscious and unconscious reactions. And you can't be aware choicelessly if you are condemning, if you are justifying. If you say, I'll keep my God, my experiences, my knowledge, then you can't be aware totally. You are aware partially. And a partial awareness is really being blind. If you don't see, you don't see. You can't say, I partially see, partially understand. Either you understand or don't understand. And understanding is not a matter of time, not a matter of gradation, gradualness. You either see or don't see. And you can't see if you're not totally, deeply aware of your reactions, of your conditioning. And being aware of your conditioning, to watch it choicelessly. To see the fact and not give opinion, judgment about the fact. That is to look at the fact without thought. Then there is an awareness, an attention, where the known doesn't interfere. It is that attention without frontiers, without a center. That can comprehend the unknowable. But merely to think about the unknowable with a petty little mind that's crippled with neurotic ideas of fear and despair, of greed and envy. Such a mind can never however much it may speculate about the unknowable, about God, about this or that, has very little meaning. Such a mind is not a religious mind at all. It's a stupid mind. I'm using the word stupid in the dictionary sense, not emotionally or condemnatory. I hope I've explained that question, sir. Please, would you mind those who ask questions to make them short and brief? Because I have to repeat what you say. The lady asks, is it not important to be rid of emotions? The negative ones, but keep the positive ones. What do we mean by emotion? A sensation? A reaction? The response of the senses? The things, the response that says this is good and that's bad? This is pleasurable, that is not pleasurable? And deriving emotion from the pleasurable, and there is also emotion from the disagreeable. Devotion, feeling a sense of love, sympathy for another, they're all emotions. Some we want to keep, like love. Others we want to put away, get rid of them, like hate. Is love the opposite of hate? And is love emotion, sensation? A thing that's stretched out through memory? And that we want to keep, what we call love. And what we call hate, we want to get rid of, because that's a very negative, ugly emotion. But do we know what it means to love, which we call positive? Do we? We love our animal. We love our wife, husbands. You see on the posters, lovely beer. We love God. Is that love? We love our family. Most extraordinary thing, the family. Family is a dreadful thing because we cling to it, we invest in it, we immolate ourselves in it, we continue ourselves through the family, through the name. It's the center round which morality, which is ourselves extended, perpetuated. But one can have a family without all that mess and ugliness. So what do we mean by love? Surely, love is not memory. That's very difficult to understand, because for us love is memory. I love my wife, my son, my husband. When you say I love my husband, wife, son, what do we mean by that? I love my wife, husband. What do we mean by that? The thing that gives you pleasure, the thing which you have recognized, identified yourself with, belonging to you, possessing. These are facts. I'm not inventing these things, so don't be horrified. Psychologically, when I say I love, what do we mean by that? Is love a matter of time? Can love exist when there is attachment? When there is pride in that which you love? Or possess that which you love? When you say it's my wife, my husband, is that in that state, is there love? Is there love when you are jealous, when your wife or husband turns away from you and you feel lonely, miserable, agonized? Is that love? And is it love of God when you go to church every day or every once a week and go through all the business of it? To love something, you must know. You must be completely with it. With all your being. Completely with your heart, with your mind. In which there is no observer and the thing observed. Which doesn't mean identification at all. That's another trick. I identify myself with my family, and I love that family. That's not love at all. It's yourself extended which you love. But we love the image, the symbol of my wife and my husband, my child. I don't know my wife at all, or my husband. And I can never know. Because knowledge means recognition. Recognition means memory. Memory of pleasure and pain, the things with which I have lived, suffered, agonized over, which I possess, to which I am attached. And it is that image, that symbol we think we love, not the living thing. How can you love when there is despair, agony, fear, sorrow, loneliness? How can an ambitious man love? And we're all very ambitious, honorably. So, really, to find out what love is, we must die to all emotions, the good and the bad. To die effortlessly, because we understand it. As we understand a deadly thing, then perhaps we'll know what love is. But Madame, please. No, are you asking a question or are you trying to... But Madame, what's the question, please?
Well, this is my question. Is life in the West much more artificial than it is, say, in the East?
Is life in the West more artificial than the East? I'm afraid it's about the same. We have got romantic ideas about the East. I said the life in the West, however, is supposed to be artificial, and so is life in the East artificial. There is not much to choose either, from either.
I was thinking, but that's because it's more primitive there.
Madam, a primitive life is not a spiritual life. You see, a primitive life, a life of the savage, of the primitive, he's equally frightened of thunder, of his gods, but more crude, much more superficial. But there is a primitiveness which the sophisticated, the ultra highly educated, the very knowledgeable person must become primitive. Which means he must become young, innocent, and he must die to every knowledge that he has gathered. And that primitiveness can be had in the West or in the East. This division between the East and West is so utterly immature. It's a division, an artificial division. Geographical division. But the men there suffer as much as here. They are as materialistic as here. Only they spin out a lot of words about God, wisdom, and do few cunning tricks with their minds, but that is not maturity, that is not innocency. Madam,
I can live alone and be self-sufficient. I do not need to go and
Madam, I beg of you, make your question. This is not, there is only one speaker here, unfortunately. All right, I understand, madam. I think I understand your question. What is wrong if one loves oneself? What is oneself? You understand the question? What is oneself? What are you? Why shouldn't you love yourself? What are you to love yourself? What are you actually? Apart from the name, apart from your bank account, apart from the qualities and the education and the job and the title or the... What are you actually? A bundle of memories, aren't you? Oh, yeah, voyons. No, madam, we can't discuss this. Sorry. I am afraid we cannot discuss with so many people. You can ask, and I will try to answer. Perhaps not your question. Because, one more, please, just a minute. There is a gentleman before you. Please, sir.
Can one reach the condition which you advocate without first training the mind?
Can you achieve that state of mind which you advocate without first training the mind? So after you have trained your mind, you must dive to the trained mind. You see, that is one of our peculiar ideas, that you must go through certain states, training, discipline, in order to arrive at that extraordinary state. I didn't use the word extraordinary. I said just dive to things that you are aware of every day. That doesn't need training. Just to watch your agony, your attachment. All right, sir. To dive to your attachment, which is not obviously love. I'm attached to my wife. Why am I attached? We can analyze it very clearly. One can see it, why we are attached to things, to people, to ideas. If you want, we can analyze it. It's fairly clear, fairly simple. First of all, I'm lonely. We are lonely. And we find pleasure, companionship in another. He gives us comfort, a sense of security, joy, pleasure, communication, and all the rest of it. And so we are attached. Then we say, I love that person. And when anything happens to that person, you are jealous, envious. And you suffer. Does love bring suffering? So, being aware of attachment, to die to that, to die to it immediately. Does that need training? You say it will need training because you don't want to give it up. And you will gradually loosen yourself from your attachment.
You are leading us towards a great emptiness. Can you speak about what great truth might fill this emptiness if we could die?
No, wait a minute. Have I answered your question, sir? That we need training, that we must go through a system Wait a minute, sir. What's my answer? You're all educated here. You all speak English. What am I saying? I am saying attachment is not love. And to find out what love is, die to attachment. Does that need training? Must you go through innumerable systems to die to attachment? To uncover why you believe in so many things, psychologically, to uncover why you believe. And after uncovering, looking, to die to that belief. Does that need training? You see, one of the peculiar ideas is that we must go through a particular system of thought, of training, of disciplining, in order to be free. Will you go through various forms of training to find what love is? Beg pardon? We need great attention. Does that mean you must follow a system? See, I'm afraid we are rather sluggish. We don't want to look immediately. We say, well, we'll take time. What is the question? I'll answer your question. The lady says, we have not the energy to apply. You know, we have plenty of energy with things what we want to do. It took a lot of energy for you to come here. It takes a lot of energy to think, to believe, to be jealous, to be envious, to be ambitious. You know, the ambitious man, how energetic he is. But we say we have no energy to get rid of ambition. The answer is very simple. You can only have to look at the question for yourselves. The lady here asks, please correct me if I repeat it wrongly. The lady here asks, so far you have pointed out or brought us or explained verbally a nothingness, a state of nothingness. And in that state of nothingness, what is truth? That's right. First of all, sirs, the nothingness is not something mysterious. It is the denial without motive of everything of every psychological structure of society. If you deny without motive ambition, you are left with an emptiness, aren't you? If you are no longer ambitious, driven by success, fame, or to escape through fear, and you have died to all that, cut through all that, then, as I pointed out, there is a state of loneliness, a state of negation. Loneliness is really complete negation. But that loneliness is a reaction to the desire to be positive, which we won't discuss that for the moment. So, there is this emptiness. Then what is, the lady asks, what is truth? Now wait a minute. Are we exchanging verbally, theoretically, or have we come to that point when you, for yourself, have totally realized, without any compulsion, urging, influence, when you yourself have completely, consciously and unconsciously, psychologically, broken away from the structure of society? If you have totally, not partially given up one ambition and keep another ambition going, partially got rid of fear and cling to innumerable beliefs, but when psychologically you are completely free from the social structure, then there is an emptiness. Then there is no tomorrow, nor yesterday, nor the observer observing. If you have come to that, all verbal communication, what is beyond, is merely theoretical. It has no value. Because the word is not the thing. So if you do not mind, we can't go beyond that. It becomes then merely a speculative amusement to be accepted or denied.
In discussing death, you have not mentioned the seemingly imminent death of the world. Should this not also be considered?
Yes, sir. The gentleman says, you have not mentioned the imminent death of the world through the atom bomb. Well, I'm afraid the historical events must take their course. If we are blasted out, vaporized in the meantime, well, what are we going to do? You mean say we're going to stop Mr. Khrushchev, Kennedy, and Mr. Macmillan and the rest of the group, stop them from cultivating this marvelous mushroom? Look what is invested in it. Look at the private interest in it. The army, the navy, the air force, the captains, the generals. All their interest is in it. They cannot be dissolved in overnight. And they're going to resist, as you will resist if your particular form of racket is attacked. But we can. You and I, not the world, not somebody else, but you and I can die psychologically to our greeds and envies, to our hates and nationalism. Those that we can die immediately, not wait for the atom bomb to blast us out. All right, sir. The gentleman says, wouldn't it be better to use the word psychological serenity, tranquility instead of death? If the word tranquility, ending, death, serenity means the same thing, we'll accept those words. But you see, we can spin with words, we can exchange words, substitute words. But the fact remains that we psychologically don't die. God, or whatever that is, can only be found if there is such thing to be found. Only when you're put away, when there is a freedom from the known. To die to the known is an extraordinary thing. To the known, to your experience of yesterday, the things that we cherish, we look back to with longing. To die to that. I'm using the word die, not being tranquil about it. To die. To put an end to it. By putting an end from discontinuing it, dying to it, brings tranquility. And tranquility is minor affair. Because out of this immense death, there is an innocency which in itself is stillness of the mind. The innocent mind is the still mind. And it's only the still mind will discover what is in that state of stillness.